So, Apple's M4 chip. What a weird debut, right? It didn't show up in a new Mac. Nope, it landed in an iPad Pro of all things. It was a total surprise, and man, the promises they made phenomenal performance, a giant leap in AI. But behind the shiny marketing, there's always a deeper story, a story about tough engineering choices, trade offs, and what this chip really means for the future.
So in this explainer, we're going to peel back all those layers. We'll start with the promise, Apple's big story. Then we'll dive into the reality, what's actually inside the silicon. We'll uncover a really interesting paradox at its core, see how it actually performs out in the wild, and then look ahead to what this all means for the future of the Mac.
All right, first things first. Let's talk about the hype, the official story from Apple. This is what they wanted us to hear, and it definitely set some sky-high expectations.
And this quote from Johnny Srouji, Apple's chip boss, just nails it. Their whole strategy is right here. It's not just about making faster chips. No, it's about using that custom silicon to do things that were literally impossible before. Like building that crazy thin iPad Pro where the M4 first showed up.
And then there's this number, 38 trillion operations per second. Whoa. That's the raw horsepower of the new neural engine, the AI brain of the chip. And you better believe Apple was shouting from the rooftops that this was faster than any AI PC out there at the time. A total flex. Okay, so that's the hype, but how did they actually pull it off? Now we get to the fun part. Let's pop the hood and see what's really going on, thanks to some killer analysis from a few independent reviewers.
Now, before we get into the weeds, there's one term we gotta know: microarchitecture. Don't worry, it's pretty simple. Just think of it like the detailed blueprint for a car's engine. It's not about how many cylinders it has, but how they're all designed to work together to create power. And this, my friends, is where the M4 made a massive leap.
So, some amazing analysis from GeekerOne found a big problem with the M3. Imagine you have these super powerful engines, but they're stuck in a traffic jam. They just weren't getting enough instructions to stay busy. So with the M4, Apple basically built a superhighway. They widened the on-ramps to let more instructions in, added way more lanes inside, and improved the traffic control to keep everything flowing. The whole point? To keep those powerful engines fed and running at full throttle. No more digital traffic jams.
And here's another really cool insight, this one from Tech Insights. It turns out Apple's not using the same Lego bricks for the whole chip. For the big, powerful P-cores, they're using parts built for pure, unadulterated speed. But for the GPU and the little E-cores, they're using different parts, ones that are all about saving power and space. It's this really smart, deliberate trade-off, right? Go for max speed where you absolutely need it and be super efficient everywhere else.
And all of this, it leads us to the absolute heart of the M4 story. This really fascinating paradox, a real tug of war between raw performance and how much power it takes to get there. And to really get this, you have to understand this isn't just another small step. GeekerOne's analysis says this is the biggest architectural jump Apple has made in years. We're talking since the A14. So you'd expect the performance gains to be absolutely massive, right?
And, well, they are. The benchmarks don't lie. We're looking at a huge 19% jump in integer performance and an even bigger 25% leap in floating point tasks compared to the M3. So yeah, Apple wasn't kidding about a big jump. But that is only half of the story, because here's the kicker. To get that 25% performance boost, the M4 needed a whopping 57% more power than the M3 when it was really pushed. 57%. And that is the paradox. A whole lot more speed for a whole lot more power when you're flooring it.
Now, your first reaction might be, whoa, that's terrible, that's a failure. But it's not that simple. As a really smart user on Reddit pointed out, this is just physics. It's a fundamental law of making chips. Squeezing out that last bit of performance is always inefficient. Think about it. If Apple had just tried to overclock the chip to get that speed, the power cost would have been through the roof. It's actually those big architectural jumps we talked about that kept the power cost from being even worse. Okay, so enough with the theory and the benchmarks. What does this power-hungry beast actually mean for you and me? For the laptops we can actually go out and buy. Let's get into the real-world impact.
Let's start with the pros, and this quote from MKBHD really says it all. I mean, this guy was sitting on an M1 Max for years, perfectly happy, no real reason to upgrade. And then the M4 Max comes along and he's like, okay, I'm tempted. That tells you everything you need to know about how big this jump feels to a power user. And you can see why he's tempted. For a pro workflow like editing video in Final Cut Pro, the jump from M1 Max to M4 Max is just insane. We're talking roughly twice as fast. And it's not just about raw speed. That power unlocks brand new AI features, like magnetic mask, that can literally save an editor hours of tedious work. For pros, that's not just cool, that's time and money.
But what about the rest of us, the everyday user? Well, let's hear from MKBHD again, this time talking about the M4 MacBook Air. He basically calls it the world's easiest laptop to recommend. And it's not just about the chip, and it's easy to see why. The M4 Air wasn't just a speed bump, it was a way better deal. The starting price dropped by $100. The base RAM doubled to 16 gigs, which is huge for just, having a bunch of tabs open. Throw in a better webcam and support for 2 monitors. I mean, come on. You're getting so much more laptop for less cash. But, and there's always a but with the Air, it's the heat. See, there's no fan, so that powerful chip has nowhere to breathe. And these gaming tests from Mr. MacWrite show exactly what happens. You start out great, a smooth 60 frames per second. But then things get toasty. The chip has to slow itself down to avoid overheating. And after just 20 minutes, you've lost a third of your performance. It's the classic reminder, all that power doesn't mean a thing if you can't keep it cool. All right, so let's zoom out, the big picture. What is all this crazy performance, the power paradox, the market strategy, what does it all mean for the future of the Mac? Well, it turns out the M4 might be a bigger deal than any of us realized at first.
You know how Apple's been on that yearly M-chip schedule? M1, M2, M3, like clockwork. Well, it looks like that's changing. Reports are pointing to a delay for the M5, maybe not showing up until early 2026. That breaks the whole rhythm and means the M4 gets to be king of the hill for way longer than usual.
And if we look even further down the road, to the M6 generation around 2027, that's when the rumors say we'll get the next big MacBook redesign. We're talking things like OLED screens, maybe ditching the notch for a dynamic island, the whole shebang. So what does that make the M4? It kind of positions it as the grand finale, the final, most polished, most powerful version of the MacBook design we know right now. So this is the question I want to leave you with. We all know the M1 was the revolution, right? It changed everything for the Mac. But when you look at the M4 with this massive architectural leap, this all-out push for performance, and the fact that it's going to be around for a while, you have to wonder, is the M4 actually the most important chip Apple has made since the M1? Something to chew on.